I apologize for the delay. Who doesn't love meetings that are supposed to be over the noon hour? We'll get going now that I'm able to reconvene our hearing. If you want to call the detective.
Sure, Detective Shunk, returning to the stand.
I'll remind you that you're still under the oath you swore this morning, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I know you were on this morning, and then we had Mr. Jobe, and I'm going to ask you some questions about the same exhibit, which is number 498. Just quickly, if you could refresh the jury, what are we looking at in 498?
This is a Bart Halderson Celebrate report.
Okay. And I think we had talked about looking at some data starting at page 2,538, which you last testified. What were you testifying about? What happened at 2:04 p.m. on the 29th of June, 2021?
At 2:04 p.m. on the 29th of June, phone number 608-246-6210 was called for 19 minutes and 46 seconds. That was the call Bart made to Omar Jobe.
Okay. And there are a couple pages more of entries. Could you walk through, that is entry 110. If you could just walk through, what is entry 111 on that phone?
111 is just, it's showing the source of that phone call. Once again, showing the 246-6210 number.
And that's just data that was pulled from the phone?
Correct.
All right. When there's only a couple pages left, we'll go to the next one. What happens in what's been analyzed in your system as number 112? It looks like there's a message sent. Who's it sent from and who's it sent to?
Correct. On June 29th, still at 3:27 p.m., Bart Halderson sends a message to Chandler. It's listed as Chaz Halderson in his phone contacts. It's an instant message that says, "I spoke to Omar Jobe."
Then the next item analyzed in your system is 113. It's a web history. Is this exactly what it sounds like, internet history?
It is.
Okay. And what does that show, and at what time does it show it?
At 5:39 p.m. on that same date, Bart Halderson Googled Madison Area Technical College.
Okay. And 114?
114 is just showing that the search was completed through Safari.
115?
115 is just the mobile Safari cookies that are attached when you Google Madison Area Technical College.
And the same with 116?
Correct.
What about 117?
117, Bart Halderson is Googling Contact Madison College. This would be like a contact list that is on their website.
And in 118, do we see the same source code essentially being repeated?
Correct.
And the same with 119 and 120?
119 is different. That's actually the web history showing employee directory for Madison Area Technical College. So Bart Halderson Googled the employee directory at that time.
Thank you. 120?
120, the associated cookies when you type that search in.
All right. And line 121, could you give us the date and time and then what was done there?
Line 121 is June 29th, 5:40 p.m. Once again, Bart is still in the employee directory.
Okay. 122?
122 is listing employee directory results, and that's at the same time on the same date.
123?
123 is an activity sensor data. This comes from the health app on Apple phones that shows July 1st at 2 p.m.
Okay. And in your experience or knowledge, what is this?
So people that have the health app on their Apple phones, every hour, Apple will document, steps traveled, distance traveled, among other items that you can select to be shown in the app.
Line 124, if you could give us the date and time of that and what happened.
Line 124 is an instant message. It's July 1st, 2021 at 2:10 p.m. This is an instant message from Bart Halderson to Chandler Halderson.
And what does it read?
Bart wrote to Chandler, "I'm ready whenever you are."
Okay. The next line, 125.
125 is just a duplicate of that same.
Okay. And the very last line here, labeled as 126. What is the date and time of that and what happened?
126 is July 1st, 2021 at 3 p.m. It's also an activity sensor data. It's also just the iPhone health app reporting that there was the last activity at that time.
Okay. And that's when it was uploaded at 3 o'clock?
That was when it was uploaded for the previous hour, correct?
In your review of the records, does it appear that the uploads happens periodically on the hour basis, perhaps?
Every hour.
After Bart Halderson's phone updated the health app at 3 o'clock on July 1st, 2021, was there ever any activity on that phone again?
There was not.
Judge, if you could just turn the ELMO on, I just want to make sure I can display the relevant messages. And so again, we're looking at exhibit number 498, and we're going to start here. Is this that phone call to Mr. Jobe that you were talking about?
Yes, it is.
And so we have the date, the time, June 29th, 2021, and then the duration of the call. You mentioned the text message shortly thereafter, June 29th, 2021, 3:27, the parties, and then that's the body, correct?
Yes.
And then we start talking about looking up Madison Area Technical College. I'll just display down that page on page 2539. Page 2540. I think this is what we talked about. Some of these are things he's Googling or clicking on, and some are cookies. And we get to line 123. This is the health upload that you were talking about at 2 o'clock?
Correct.
All right. And shortly after that, we see this message at 2:10 on July 1st, 2021 from Bart to Chaz. I'm ready whenever you are.
Yes.
And that was his last message ever sent?
Correct.
And then just as we saw at 2, at 3 o'clock, we see another health upload,
Yes.
and then the page goes blank.
That was the last one.
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Thank you. Now, the exhibit you just testified about contained more information, more entries than you just talked about, correct?
Yes.
So you just talked about the ones that you and Mr. Brown determined relevant to this investigation, correct?
To this specific point, there's been other references to that attachment.
To this specific point, correct?
Sure.
Now, in looking at Bart Halderson's phone, it's fair to say your investigation looked as much as you possibly could on that phone for potential evidence, correct?
Yes.
That's it, thank you.
Any redirect on that point? Thank you, Detective. You can return to the table.
I'll call Stacey Sadoff from the Department of Justice. We'll have Stacey at this time. Hi, good afternoon. You can follow that gentleman right there.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
If you believe you can safely and responsibly testify without a mask, that would be our preference.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And as you discovered, the chair doesn't move, it's bolted to the floor, but the microphone can come closer if we need that.
Okay.
Go ahead, counsel.
Good afternoon. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Stacey Sadoff, Stacey Sadoff.
And what do you do for a living, ma'am?
I'm a digital forensics examiner
With who?
with Wisconsin Department of Justice.
What does a digital forensics examiner do?
We do several things, but to make a long story short, we will look at electronic evidence, so cell phones, computers, thumb drives, tablets, and pull information from those devices and then conduct analysis.
What type of specialized training do you have in the area of digital forensics or phone analysis, things of that sort?
Yes, so I have done training through multiple softwares, digital forensic software specifically, that I've done on and off since I started in 2013.
I'm showing it's been marked in this case, exhibit number 466. Is that your CV?
Yes,
All right, I'll move 466 into evidence.
Objection.
It is received.
Were you asked to become involved in the case of Mr. Chandler Halderson and the homicides of Bart and Krista Halderson?
yes.
What types of things did you do in the investigation?
So in this investigation, I was asked to do cell phone extractions.
Sure. There were a few cell phones brought to your attention in this case.
Yes,
Were you able to access all of them?
no.
What goes into whether you're able to access a phone or not in your job?
So with forensic software, newer phones, we oftentimes struggle with getting into them if they're password protected. So in this case, some devices were newer than others.
The older the device, the more likelihood that you're going to be able to get into it.
Yes,
Do you stay up to date with the newest technology and trying to break into these iPhones?
yes, I try.
And it's fair to say Apple is constantly combating privacy issues with their phones and trying to develop phones that can't be broken into.
Yes,
Okay. And it's a back and forth sometimes.
correct.
Okay. So amongst the phones that you were able to access in this case, was one of them the phone of Krista Halderson?
Yes,
So I'm showing you what's been received into evidence as exhibit number 385. And what does that appear to be?
one of the phones that was submitted.
All right. And that has a sticker on it, in fact, indicating that you looked at it or someone in your department.
Yes,
And I'm showing you it's been marked and received into evidence as 387. Found with this phone, what does that appear to be?
driver's license
Of who?
of Krista Ray Halderson.
Got it. So with Krista's phone, were you able to perform any sort of extraction?
Yes,
Okay. And you place that on it's transferred electronically, essentially, to prosecutors and defense attorneys and things of that sort?
yes,
Okay. Just showing you 374. Does that seem to be labeled the extraction of Krista's phone?
yes.
Okay. I will move 374 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
It is received.
In this case in particular, as you extracted the phone, did you provide that data back to the detectives who were working on the case?
Yes,
Okay. Sometimes you review all that data yourself and look for things?
correct.
But in this case, a good deal of that work was done by the detectives.
Yes,
Okay. Another phone I'm going to ask you about is a phone belonging, or that was purportedly Chandler Halderson's old phone. Were you able to review something that you believe to be one of Mr. Halderson's older phones?
yes.
And
Started as we're on the record for the
why do you
people in
think
the
it was an
gallery.
older phone, or
This
what
is
gives you
only
that
gonna-
impression?
This
it's an
statement is
older
going to be
phone?
made one time.
The phone was
allowed
an
to be in the
older
courtroom as
make
long as
and
you can
model as compared
behave
to
and conduct
another
yourself
phone that was
appropriately,
submitted that
which means
was
no
a newer
talking,
make and
no
model.
kibitzing,
Okay.
No
And
cameras,
in
no phones, and no
The
coming
course
and
of I think what the jury's heard,
If
but
there are violations of the decorum
if that
of this
phone was
court,
found in a
they'll be
desk
dealt
drawer
by
with
the
other
sheriff's
phones,
department,
that's
which will
consistent
probably
with
mean
people
you'll
where
be
they just put their
excused,
old phones.
regardless
Yes.
of your interest in this case.
And did you
That applies
download
to
that phone
anybody
as well?
with
Yes.
either side. It applies to the media. It applies to everyone that's in the courtroom.
Particularly, I ask you,
expect decorum
when you
today
download a
through
phone
the
and when you develop
duration of this
information
trial.
related to those phones, are you able to see what the passwords
All right,
are?
we'll have the jury brought in. I'll read them
Sometimes.
the preliminary
In this case, were you
instructions.
able to see what
Both
Krista
sides can
Halderson's
make opening
password was?
statements.
Yes.
I would ask
And
and
were you able to
expect
see
that
what
the opening
Chandler
statements are
Halderson's old
relatively
iPhone
succinct.
password was, the phone
Then
that
we'll start with the
was
state's
found
first
in his room?
witness.
Yes.
And what were they?
I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but they were the same.
They were the same
Everybody
password?
can remain seated when the jury
Yes.
comes in.
And for the record, does this appear to be that phone, the old Chandler Halderson phone?
Yes,
And that's your lab sticker on it?
You can make
Yes.
a
White sticker?
using a mic
Yes.
and turn this way so my recorder can hear.
Those phones were 4-digit passwords?
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
And you confirm them to be the same?
yes.
One moment. Showing you what's been marked. In this case, as exhibit number 467, page through that and let me know what we're looking at.
My forensic examination report.
And what kind of information, and which phone is that for?
This is for all of them.
Okay. And what information is contained in that report?
The 3 evidence items that were submitted, so it will give information on, for example, phone, make, model, IMEI number, phone number, what kind of extraction was conducted.
Sure. And in this document, can you show us where the breakdown is between the different phones? You said it's all of them?
On page 2 of my forensic examination report, it breaks down the 3 different phones that were submitted.
Understood. Okay, thank you. One moment, I'm going to page through, make sure we have all of the documents in. We're going to have the detectives testify in a second about some of them, but just give me 1 second. And just referencing again, 267, regarding that passcode, would it help to look at this report to remember what it was?
Yes,
You looked at a lot of data, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. So if we're looking at page, on exhibit 467, starting with the iPhone 6 that we've identified as the phone found in Mr. Halderson's room, it's on page 4,933. Be able to determine a passcode there?
Yes,
And what is that?
2568.
And then if I turn to page 4,936, this is identified as Krista's phone that you downloaded. What's that password?
2568.
No further questions.
Counsel, before I ask about cross, could you double check the exhibit number for the extraction? You said 374, but we have that assigned to something else. I think it was an envelope.
Let me double check it. Yeah.
Okay.
Press. Give me 1 second.
Extraction of what?
The extractum is 574.
574. That's not what you said according to 2 people up here. Yeah, cross-examination, please.
Yes, thank you. So, just want to clarify something. Earlier, you said that the documents that you just reviewed with Mr. Brown regarded all of them. When we're talking about all of them, we're talking about cell phones, correct?
Yes,
And what is all of them? How many cell phones did you review?
3.
So in particular, we just talked about 2 right now. We talked about an iPhone 6 that was identified as an older iPhone that belonged to Mr. Halderson Chandler, correct?
Yes,
Then we talked about a newer iPhone that was identified as belonging to Krista Halderson, correct?
yes,
These both have the same passwords.
yes,
And then there was a third phone that
Yes.
was, and whose phone was that?
Believed to be the defendant's.
So whatever phone he was using now. Or
Correct.
you believe he's using now.
Yes,
And those were the only phones that you were asked to extract data from.
yes.
Out of curiosity, how many phones have you extracted data from? Just a rough number, in general, not just in this case.
Okay. I would estimate between 500 to 1,000.
A lot of phones.
Yes,
And you said that sometimes you can get a full extraction from phones and sometimes you cannot, correct?
correct.
And I believe that it has nothing to do with, or it might, but for the most part, it just has to do with whether a phone is newer or older, yes?
Yes,
Newer phones have more protection, more safety components, yes?
correct.
And they're correct, and they're protected by passwords, yes?
Correct.
Now with the passwords, sometimes you're able to get the password on this extraction from the phone and sometimes you're not, correct?
Correct.
And you may not have the right answer for this. I don't think there's a right answer, but out of curiosity, how many times do you think people use birth dates as passwords?
I would say more common than a random number.
How many times have you ever seen the password as 1111?
If I had to estimate, maybe 15%-ish of the time.
It's up there, yeah? No further questions, thank you.
Redirect?
The phone you were not able to access, what model was that?
What model?
Yeah.
It was an iPhone. I don't recall the specific model.
Was it newer than the other ones?
Yes,
And I think, is that the one that you believe to be Mr. Halderson's phone?
yes,
Using whatever technology you have and whatever password breaking software you have, were you able to break into that phone?
no.
No further questions.
May this witness be excused
Yes.
and released?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
1 second, please, Counsel. Folks, we're going to take a recess at this point in time so that I can address something. Randy, go ahead.
All right for the jury?